What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is Kevin with Optimize Essentials, and today I'm going to share with you how to eat as much as you want and not get fat, especially during the holidays and the cheat meals, because as of right now, depending on where you're watching this, for me it is the holiday season. Christmas just passed and we're rolling into the New Year's, and during this period, especially after Thanksgiving and that whole month following afterwards, there's a lot of parties, there's a lot of events, there are a lot of opportunities to go out and eat or eat at home, and there's a lot of good food, and you just don't want to get fat. Well, here's the thing, a lot of my clients do get fat. A lot of my clients complain about, I go to the gym, but there's just too much food and I just can't lose the weight, right? It's hindering me. It's becoming some place, or 'tis the season where you let yourself go, right? How do you combat this? Today, fear not, I'm going to share with you more of my secrets, more of my techniques to maintain low body fat percentage, to have visible abs and still be lean and cut during the season where you eat a lot of food. How can you eat a lot and not get fat? So, first and foremost, before I begin, I do want to mention that this is a multiple part series video, part of my lean series. This is actually part 4 of possibly 5, most likely 5. So you want to make sure you watch all 3 parts prior to this, because I go into in-depth detail within each video about what it takes to get in shape and stay there, right? Because a lot of us want to change, a lot of us want to get in shape, but for some reason we just can't do it for whatever that reason is. So, the very first thing I want you to understand when it comes down to losing weight and getting in shape is you have to have a higher metabolism, right? This is the key. This is the most important key when it comes down to burning fat, being a fat burning machine. You need to have a higher metabolism. When you have a higher metabolism, your body burns energy, burns fuel more efficiently. It burns fuel more kind of quicker, right? Your body requires more energy to keep yourself alive, right? That's the basal metabolic rate, which is why you need to watch part 3 if you haven't already. It talks about the secret, which is also something I'm going to cover briefly, but to kind of go in more depth, you want to watch that so you have a better understanding of what I'm talking about today. So higher metabolism is the key. Now, how do you build a higher metabolism? How do you kind of spike up your metabolism for these big events, for these occasions, or these cheat meals that you're having, right? Well, there are a few techniques. One of the most effective techniques that I have found during the day of, or just in general, for you to kind of utilize it most effectively is intermittent fasting. Now, obviously, if you do intermittent fasting, but you eat 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 calories that day, intermittent fasting, it will only help so much, but it's still a good way to kind of shave off and burn some fat or extra calories in the morning, so that when you do have the big meal towards the later end of the day, you can kind of have a little cushion room for that meal. But intermittent fasting, if you don't know what it is, it's basically a period of time when you don't eat, right? When you don't have food in your system. I recommend doing your own research, because I'm going to only do a brief overview of intermittent fasting and give you a template and an example of how it can be used, but based on your schedule, it may not be the most applicable way of eating or the most adequate use of intermittent fasting. So the idea behind intermittent fasting is there's a 16-hour window, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what works for you, again, where you don't eat. So let's just say 16 and 8, right? That's the most common example that you'll find online, is 16 hours where you don't eat anything, and then 8 hours where you do eat food. But within those 8 hours, you have to eat within your limit. But when it comes down to, pigging out on the day, it's okay to go over that limit, but you have to do it strategically with what I'm about to share with you today. So, for example, let's say you wake up at 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. You won't eat until 12 o'clock. That's when you'll have your first meal, and then towards the nighttime, you'll have your second meal, but you need to have that meal before 8 o'clock, ideally, right? That's where I can kind of, in my experience, allow for some deviation, at least for me. I personally can't wait until 12 o'clock to eat. Unless I've eaten a lot the day before, then I can go a long time without eating. But if I've worked out really hard and I am depleted and I am hungry and I'm sore, then I typically stop it at 10 o'clock. So I give myself actually 14 hours of fasting, maybe more, maybe less, depending on how my body feels. And then I don't eat until, or I eat until about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. So my window is actually wider and whatnot. So I adjust it based on what works for me. Because some people, they will be really hungry like me, and when you're super hungry, you're low on blood sugar, things begin to not work as well. You might not function in terms of mental performance. You might not be able to deliver as well in terms of your work. So it really depends on how your body's reacting. A lot of people say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. For some, maybe it is. I personally find that if I do eat some protein in the morning, some eggs, some veggies, something that keeps me full for a good few hours, I work optimally, right? But when I do intermittent fasting, when I'm trying to deplete my system, after a while I start to kind of lose energy. So you want to make sure you're working this according to what works well for you and how it feels for you. Does it make sense? Typically, during intermittent fasting, what's recommended is 1 to 2 meals. One meal is really hard to pull off if you don't eat the whole day and you save it for your big meal. That allows you to eat as much as you want, literally. But the best way to go about it, in my opinion, is to eat 2 meals, right? 3 meals, I put a question mark, possibly can work, depending on how you structure those meals and what you eat during those meals. And I'll explain into a little bit more detail in the following. All right, so let's say, for example, you're based on the typical 2,000 calorie diet, your standard 2,000 calories. Well, in order for you to effectively use intermittent fasting correctly, we'll say your first meal, you want to eat roughly around 500 calories. That saves you or gives you an estimate about 1,500 roughly calories for your bigger meal, or whatever it is you're going to eat outside, etc., right? So your first meal, 500 to 600 calories. What I like to do is I like to make sure these are whole ingredient foods, right? Not some garbage junk food, right? You want to eat, depending on what you're eating that day, give and take, but it's not something you want to do excessively. If you want this formula to work, you want to make sure it's some real, whole, preferably organic foods that give you a lot of nourishment, all right? Here's the key. The key is you want nutrient-dense food that are rich in micronutrients, macronutrients, etc., right? You want your vitamins and minerals, as much of them as you can in this meal, because when you have your bigger meal, you're probably going to eat a lot more calories that are kind of empty, so to say. Maybe some fatty foods, fried foods, mashed potatoes, or things that just really kind of don't provide much nutrient value and put a lot of demand and stress on your body. If that is the case, you most definitely want to eat something very, very healthy in your first meal. If you haven't checked out my nutrition guide, which I'll have up shortly, I do provide a meal template that goes based off of 3 meals, how to eat according to your own body type, how to eat meals that work well for your body, how to identify your body type, because if you're eating foods that don't work well with your body type, you won't have the highest energy levels that you need. So you want to make sure to check out my nutrition guide at optimizeessentials.com. It's a really good nutrition guide that I put together that will work well with maintaining lean physique in the long run, because this is somewhat of a short-term fix. It's very harsh on your body if you don't do it correctly. So I want you to educate yourself, and this is a very long process of understanding. So what I did was I condensed my best knowledge and put it into a nutrition guide so that you can understand how to eat properly for good energy, vibrant health, good skin, and just optimal functioning of the human body, right? So check out my nutrition guide. It's something I put a lot of work on. It's a small investment, so make sure you just check it out and proceed with it. But I kind of based my template off of that guide that I sent you. I'll give you a little sneak peek of it, of how you can structure something like that, right? So the very first meal that you want to eat is 500 to 600 calories, and a good way to break it down that I've found is, let's say you eat 3 to 4 eggs, 1 avocado, and then you mix some dense vegetables on top, right? A vegetable omelet, right? Something that has a decent amount of calories but is dense in nutrients and keeps you satiated. Satiating meaning the satiation is the sense of being full, right? Foods that give you satiation are foods that are rich in nutrients and dense, all right? Dense as in let's say vegetables, some dense vegetables could be like kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, carrots, and kind of nutrients that aren't looking empty. Some people who eat salads all day, look, if you're trying to cut weight and you're trying to eat salads all day, please make sure it's not romaine. If it's romaine lettuce or iceberg lettuce, that's pretty much like very loose calories, and it's going to get flushed out of your system really quick. You want something that will take a while to digest. And not only that, the process of digesting this type of fiber, this type of nutrient-dense food actually costs calories. And if you didn't watch my part 3 video series, it's all about energy expenditure. The more your body expends energy, the more energy that's required to build, to keep it running. And as a result, you can eat more. So all the ideas that I'm sharing with you is based upon higher metabolism and energy expenditure. So if you got the idea, the first meal, you want to have 3 to 4 eggs, which is about 200 to 300 calories, 1 avocado, which is about 200 to 300 calories, and I put ranges because it depends on how big your eggs are, it depends on how big your avocados are. Some people can't even eat a full avocado, so they might cut it in half, and that is how you can kind of split it into 2 meals. So this 1 meal can actually split into portions, so you're not starving yourself. If you eat at 12 o'clock, not working out until after work, if you have a 9 to 5, not working out until like 5 or 6, you're going to be really hungry. So it's a good way to split up your meal, 250, 300 calorie meals until your next workout session, which is 6 o'clock. And then let's say you hit a good workout and then you eat around 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and that is how you can do it. So after you've eaten that small meal, whether it's 1 meal or split into 2 meals, you want to hit the gym and you want to elicit what I love inventing things, the sponge effect, all right? You know SpongeBob, that guy is skinny, right? What happens during the sponge effect? When you squeeze everything out of the muscle, when you deplete the muscle, it's now ready to absorb nutrients. It's ready, it's hungry. Your body is hungry. How do you deplete? How do you elicit the sponge effect? Well, you need to lift weights. I don't recommend doing cardio or high intensity of interval training during this time period because it could be very demanding on your body, especially if you do not have the weightlifting experience. If you're not a trained exercisee, if you're not someone who has a lot of training experience, doing high intensity interval training like burpees, jumping jacks, things where it's really putting a lot of impact on your joints, like high sprints and your posture, which is why I'm making a lot of videos on posture. When all these things are really messed up in your body, you're exacerbating it when you do high impact activities. So what I like to recommend is doing weightlifting, but with moderately heavy weight, but in a very controlled manner, right? You need to have controlled form. And I like to combine this with compound movements that use multiple body parts, right? Some good examples of this are a squat press, which I might show a video of, deadlifts, barbell squats, but these ones you need to also make sure you're doing with good form and have good posture. Otherwise, you're just messing your joints and your mechanics up, and you kind of open a can of worms, and everything eventually will come back and bite you. And then you're gonna watch my videos on posture as well and help boost my viewership, which is totally fine, guys. You guys want to make sure you're sharing these videos anyways if you're not, because I'm giving you my best information. I can charge a lot of money for this, guys. I can put this into programs, but because I want you to benefit, because I have a lot of love for the people out there who are struggling, because I was struggling, I'm going to give you my information for free. Just make sure you subscribe, share it, comment it, like it, whatever, right? So, compound movements, controlled form. What do I mean by controlling your form? Look, I explained it in the other video. Let's say you're doing a bicep curl or a bench press. A lot of people, they just go through the motion and they're just pumping the weight. But let's say, for example, you control the weight a little bit more. You're focusing on feeling and really controlling and thinking about and connecting, which is mind-muscle connection. When you're connecting, when your mind and your muscles are connecting and you're fully engaging it, right? Look, try this with me. Take your arm out and just pump your arm like this, right? Now, flex your bicep first and then control it back. Squeeze your bicep as hard as you can and then control it back. Now do that 5 times. Now, can you see the difference of actually controlling the weights and really engaging and feeling and focusing on feeling your I just had food. I do that a lot. When you control, focus, and feel your muscles, can you imagine how much more damage you'll do to your muscles in a good way, right? The idea is to elicit protein synthesis, to elicit muscle breakdown, to promote muscle tear. The more you tear and break down your muscle, there's also a fine line, right? The more you break down and tear your muscle, the more energy that's required through protein synthesis to build it back up. Does that make sense? So when you follow this formula, oh, there's one more thing. Time under tension. The more time under tension, the more tension you put your muscles under, the more it tears, the more it rips, right? Now, we don't want to overdo it and injure ourselves, because there's that fine line of maximizing your muscle damage, maximizing your muscle gains, and then the other side where you're overdoing it and you're straining and you're injuring yourself, right? It's that right amount of ratio where you're depleting your muscles, you're squeezing all the water out of the sponge so that it's ready to absorb it all the way. Does it make sense? So those are the 4 things you want to make sure you're keeping in mind. Compound movements, multiple muscle groups, controlling the form, and mind-muscle connection, really focusing on feeling and engaging that muscle and not rushing through it, feeling the pain, feeling the burn, and then putting your muscle over a lot through tension, under tension for a long time, right? If you do 10 curls really quick, it's a lot better if you do it slower and you do 10 curls within a minute, right? 10 curls under 10 seconds, no bueno. 10 curls in 60 seconds, now we're talking. That is how you elicit the sponge effect. And because of that, you have depleted muscles, and when your muscles are depleted and when you've expended a lot of energy, what happens to your metabolic rate? It goes up because your cells are starving, and now it's ready to process that food at a much quicker rate so it can restore your functions of your body. And that also happens to increase your total daily energy expenditure. So once you've had this 500 to 600 calorie in your body, your basal metabolic rate, if you haven't learned about the other video, is basically what it takes to keep your body alive. When that 500 to 600 is basically shuffled towards keeping your body alive and fully function. Now you've added this much work, the sponge effect, this much work at the gym, you basically kind of reset your calorie count, and now towards dinner, you can literally eat as much as you want and not get fat, guys. But here's the thing, it's not something you want to do occasionally, and you want to do it strategically. Again, you want to eat real healthy foods. And if you don't know how to structure your meals, if you don't know what to do, how to eat for your body type, how to eat for vital, vibrant health, you want to make sure you check out my nutrition guide, guys. It's good stuff. I put a lot of time and effort into it. But I'm also sharing with you bits and pieces of it for free on here. So regardless of what you do, you're going to benefit. So make sure you're eating healthy, good, healthy food. And then now, after you're going through the gym, you can use this and really maximize your session at the dinner table, right? But at the end of the day, there's one question I want to ask. I put down worth. You know, for all my video gamers out there, for the people who understand, you know, this terminology, you know, when I played this game called League of Legends, during the team fights, if you were to do something very crazy, like you make a really crazy play, or you kind of basically you suicide, or you do like a suicide bomb, like a kamikaze, or you do something crazy where you kind of, you want to go for the kill, but you're willing to die for the kill. People say worth. And then you would either say, "Yup, it was worth it." You're right, it was worth it, right? You say it with an accent because they're nerds, like worth. Was that worth? Is it worth? Is it worth what you're doing? Because typically after this session, after this really good workout session or this really healthy eating habit, the last thing you want to do is to punish your body. Before, I saw cheat meals as a way of reward, but sometimes when you overdo it, it becomes a punishment for your body, because your body has to process all that junk, all those artificial flavorings, all those processed garbage, that junk, depending on what you eat, right? All that flavor, all that seasoning, all that sauce, your body has to process it. And sometimes if you really pay attention to your body it feels nasty, it feels sick, because you're giving it all this junk, right? So at the end of the day, this works, you know, on occasion, on the holidays, when you're having a cheat meal. But honestly, how often are you doing this? Is it worth what you're doing? If it's worth it, then proceed. But if not, guys, you want to make sure you're living the good life, and you want to make sure you're having sustained energy over time, and you're not constantly beating yourself up because you want to pig out, right? It's fine to want to pig out, but you want to do it strategically, and you want to make sure it's truly a reward and not something you abuse. Guys, give you my best secrets. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Once again, it's Kevin with Optimize Essentials. Stay tuned for more. I'm going to have a lot more videos on fitness, health and fitness, posture, personal development, and just how to optimize your life. So make sure you share this video. It's going to help a lot. And make sure you check out my programs if you are interested in my knowledge in improving yourself and making it a win-win for the both of us. Guys, have a wonderful day. Peace.